Well, the Warriors road trip is behind them. They're at home. They're going to have some gaps in the schedule. And let's hope the Sacramento Kings provide the comfort that the Warriors need to turn the ship around. Klay Thompson thinks they're going to start a winning streak soon. This special brief edition of Locked On Warriors will provide a preview for the Kings game tonight, plus play some great sound from Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson over the weekend. Again, providing assurances and maybe providing a roadmap for what's to come for the defending world champion Golden State Warriors. I'm going live. We're brief. It's a preview. And Kylan Mills will join me tomorrow for a full show to recap tonight's game. But let's have some fun while we're here. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com and the promo code Locked On. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Like I said, I'm going solo today. Kylan Mills will join me tomorrow, early or late morning, early afternoon, to recap the Kings game, because there won't be another game until Friday. So the Warriors have a really nice gap in terms of games being played. The schedule is a little friendly for them, and given that road trip they just endured, I think they need it. Maybe the Warriors are currently not in a great place, obviously. And look, the beautiful thing is it's only 10 games. Championship hangovers are a real thing. If you hear attributions from other former great players who when they've discussed the attitude, the mental approach to trying to repeat as a world champion, it's not easy. And especially when just 4.5 months ago, the Warriors were in the middle of a war, an utter war in every basketball sense, ultimately beating the Boston Celtics to win their 4th title in 8 years. That was just 4.5 months ago, folks. It's not easy for a team of this caliber to just immediately wake up and rise to the occasion on a night-by-night regular season basis. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I'm not hitting a panic button at all. At all. I really don't think there's much to be concerned about at the moment. The one thing I was concerned about, and I've said this on the show repeatedly, is the DNPs for Jonathan Kuminga. Like, why wasn't Kuminga playing? This is a player that was the number 7 pick in the draft. You invested heavily, given how deep that draft was, and all the players you passed up to draft Kuminga. To have DNPs just a year after 17 minutes a game he was averaging. He started 3 playoff games. I didn't understand where he needed to earn the playing time again. That part was weird to me. I still maintain there was something going on behind the scenes and maybe led to that. And for this brief show today, it's going to be live. I have the chat open. In fact, I have the stream. So just as long as you keep things, keep the etiquette, appropriate, we're all good here. So Tebza Saunier writes, "Hi, Cyrus. Would you rather swap Poole for Kevon Looney to start than let Ty Jerome run the second unit?" Well, first of all, Ty Jerome, I don't know what his future holds when Dante DiVincenzo comes back. The moment Dante is playing again, and he's not going to play tonight against the Kings, he's probably going to play Friday against the Cavaliers, and that's another home game. You'll probably see him, and when he comes back, Ty Jerome's minutes are probably going to be limited. But with that said, this is a wild idea. But look, I'm going to maintain this opinion for the entire year. And I'm very adamant in this. I'm very confident in saying this, that the Warriors are not going to repeat as world champions if they don't develop their youngsters so that those young players can give you 15, 20 minutes a night in the postseason. And the only way you're going to get important minutes from them in the postseason is if they develop their games during the regular season. That's been my biggest issue with Kuminga, is that if you're not playing him, how is he ever going to develop and learn the little nuances he needs to learn to be an effective player come playoff time? And that also applies to James Wiseman, who's been struggling a lot. I love Kevon Looney. I think every member of Dub Nation loves him. I think even if you're not a fan of the Golden State Warriors, you have to love the man. He's consistent. He's reliable. He causes no drama. He's a great chemistry guy. And on the court, he's a phenomenal rebounder. He's a terrific switch defender, which is one of the biggest values that Kevon Looney brings. But with that said, you have to develop James Wiseman. You have to. This is a young player who all the mistakes he's making on the court right now are normal. Okay, like for a player with his inexperience, it's par for the course. I actually think the Warriors need to start James Wiseman and integrate him with the other 4 veterans who can guide him on the court, who can put him where he needs to go, who can coach him in real time. So when he's making mistakes, they can let him know, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, and maintain that open communication. Bring Looney off the bench. Have Looney, a man who's plus minus, I think leads the team. It's certainly up there. Have Looney play with some of the other youngsters and be a security blanket for him. So to answer your question, sorry to go off there as long as I did. I don't know if Ty Jerome's going to be playing much when Dante DiVincenzo comes back, but I also think Jordan Poole should be coming off the bench. I think that's fine, but you got to mix up that second unit with some veterans. I think that's why Andre Iguodala, when he comes back, is going to provide some value, being out there with Moody, with Kuminga, with James Wiseman. And that's also why that's where I think Kerr is still figuring out these rotations, because he has not figured out who to play with who yet. And you're going to have to mix it up. You're going to have guys like Kuminga and Wiseman out there with veterans to pick up the slack for the mistakes that they're undoubtedly going to make. Samuel Booth writes, who do you think Kuminga takes minutes from in the rotation with the starters back in? I don't think he has to really take minutes from anyone per se. I hear this question a lot, and my response always is they found 17 minutes a game for him last year. And where you give him those minutes is you take a couple minutes away from Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry's playing way too many minutes right now for a 34-year-old going on 35 who you absolutely need to win a repeat world championship. You take a couple minutes away from Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins doesn't need to play 38, 39 minutes. You can play him 32, 33. Looney, his minutes have gone up this year, only by a smidge. I think he's averaging 2 minutes more per game than he did last year, but I don't think Looney needs to average 25, 27 minutes a game. You could keep that at 20, and you can accumulate those minutes. This is what they did last year. This is how Kuminga played a year ago. You just divvy up the minutes a little more. Draymond Green clearly cannot be playing heavy minutes because you need him rested and ready for the postseason. So that's where I think the minutes come from. You just literally you nick from everyone else who's getting minutes now, because he has to be out there. And John Holmes writes, Wiseman is still just past high school. Exactly. And James Wiseman right now would be a senior if he was in college. And when you look at his experience, which isn't much, his freshman year in college played 3 whole games. He was kind of raw coming into college as well. His sophomore year in college was his rookie season with the Warriors. He played 30-something games, playing 37. I believe started 26 of them. Don't quote me on those numbers, but I know that's close. So and then he got injured. He didn't play at all in what would have been his junior year. And this is now a senior year in college. He's so young. He's so inexperienced. The fans, and I think the team is aware of this, you have to be patient with them. You just have to be. W. Chan writes, it's hard to see James Wiseman ready for big playoff minutes right now, yes, but it's a long season. And this is why you have to keep playing him now. And that's why you have to be patient with him now. What has become very evident is that the Golden State Warriors are not going to have the best record in the regular season. I think that's already a goal that's very unlikely to reach at this point. So playoff positioning is not something that can be a concern right now. The concern right now has to be getting Wiseman and Kuminga minutes. Moody's looking great. You just keep doing what you're doing with Moody. His progress, his growth is right on track. It's not a surprise given when he played at Arkansas, he was playing under Eric Musselman, former Golden State Warriors coach. He had NBA leadership to guide him. Kuminga and Wiseman kind of did with Penny Hardaway, but again, 3 games. It's just not a huge sample size. So, and And W. Chan writes, would you like Lamb to take some of JaMychal Green's minutes? No, but that's where Kuminga's minutes will also come from. JaMychal Green, I think, has played himself out of the rotation. I'm not saying he's like played himself off the team, but JaMychal Green right now is just not doing enough on the court to earn minutes that should be given to these youngsters that are growing, that need this time. With that said, I think Anthony Lamb is so far so great. He went 4 for 6 from deep the other night in that New Orleans game. And that New Orleans game, by the way, folks, I personally loved it. I think the youngsters did a fantastic job. That New Orleans Pelicans teams could go deep in the playoffs. Some people have them prognosticating them going all the way to the Western Conference Finals. I haven't heard anyone say the NBA Finals, but that's a deep team, and that's a good team. And the Warriors, who played mostly youngsters, I actually wish Looney didn't play in that game either, almost beat him. That was a close game. So Anthony Lamb, I have no complaints with him. I think so far so good. He is small. He's 6'5". When I say small, I mean height-wise. So he is a liability there defensively when taller players are matched up with him. We saw that in the New Orleans game, but the fact that he's a deep threat offensively, he spaces the floor, and so far so good. It's early, but so far so good. D. Weiss writes, dude, Kuminga played for Brian Shaw. I know who Brian Shaw is. He actually played for the Lakers. He was under Phil Jackson. But again, that was 1 year under the G League Unite. And again, before that, he was incredibly raw. I don't think he started playing basketball till he was 14 years old. And that year with Brian Shaw was one whole year. He didn't have tutelage before that from a typical AAU type path that a lot of these players go on. Kuminga he needs to play. He needs the reps. And my entire approach with the Warriors this year is forget the regular season. All right. Forget trying to, reach certain, platitudes of success in terms of if that's even a word, in terms of wins, losses. No, the entire goal this season is to develop these young players so they can be ready for the postseason. This is the roster they have. This is what you have to do. Samuel Booth writes, how long until we can start comparing the Warriors to teams like the Bucks and other contenders with the focus on developing the youth? You can't compare them right now, but I think by the end of the season you will. I still am very confident the Warriors will repeat as world champions. I do have a huge fear that Draymond Green punch might have shaken things up permanently. That is the lingering fear in the back of my head a little bit, but I still think even talent-wise, I think when things come together and the Warriors start clicking and the youngsters start at least showing a semblance of greatness, they're going to be fine. I really think that. DY, that's fair. But Moody also, and DY, you're right that Moody had more adequate coaching than Kuminga. But again, the G League Unite's also very different from the college experience. It's not nearly as organized, if that makes sense. I don't know. G League Unite's a weird one. I still have yet to see enough of a sample size from that whole system to determine if the G League Unite is an effective way to develop players. I don't know. How's Jalen Green doing in year two? He's really the poster child for the whole G League Unite and the whole G League development system. And not to mention, Brian Shaw has not really proven himself as a coach. Musselman at least is showing he can coach amazingly, at the college level. Brian Shaw, look, yes, he had Phil Jackson tutelage, and he was he's a solid player, Oakland native, I believe, right? But I just don't know if the G League Unite is really a place to rely on for development. Got to show some love real quick to PrizePicks, which I love. On a side note, let me get the graphic going here real quick. Where are you, PrizePicks? All right. And the way PrizePicks works is very simple. Okay, you're betting over unders for NBA players or for other sports as well. It's not just the NBA, but you pick a minimum of 2 players and you decide whether or not they're going to score over or under whatever the line is that PrizePicks sets. So if Stephen Curry, for example, has an over-under of 29 points, you have to decide is he going to score more than 29 in this game or less than 29 in this game. You do that with a minimum of 2 players. My only gripe this year is that you can't pick 2 players from the same team anymore as your only 2 picks. But still, it is so much fun. And one of the best parts, the transactions are super easy in terms of withdrawals, in terms of putting your money in. You don't have to go through all these crazy wire services. And if you download the PrizePicks app, or if you go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports, first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So if you put in $100, they'll give you $100. If you put in $50, they'll give you $50. All you got to do is use the promo code Locked On, and they will acknowledge and accept that promo. Don't forget to enter that promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen today. After us, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. So what's going on with the chat here? Dante comes back, and yet they're not good. Trade these guys. Dante DiVincenzo, you're referring to. I just hope he plays. I mean, he has had a reputation for being injury prone. That's Totes Me Goats writing that. Dordy writes, do you think there's a case that there's too many young players to develop at once and one should be traded? They're not going to trade any of them. All right. That's just not, I mean, they just literally gave them their year 4 extensions or year 4 for Wiseman, year 3 for Kuminga and Moody. If they were going to make a trade, it would have been this offseason for Durant. A lot of people weren't happy with that idea to begin with. So no, I do not see that happening. The Warriors are going to ride and die with these youngsters. Anonymous writes, the young players need to be treated via a mix of boot camp and Kerr's loosey-goosey system. The details and fundamentals need to be hammered in via boot camp, focus on detail, atmosphere. Agreed. I wholeheartedly agree. And look, I mean, Kerr, better late than never. He has now acknowledged and is accepting the fact that Kuminga needs to be a part of this rotation. In fact, he said so just yesterday. The Warriors held practice, and afterwards they had their press conference at a setup just right outside their practice facility, which is all located inside Chase Center. So here is Steve Kerr talking about how Kuminga will now be a member of this rotation.
Steve, did you go into the game against New Orleans thinking that you'd get 38 minutes from Jonathan? And if so, if not, rather, how did you end up getting to that many minutes? And the other part is, what did he show you? Obviously you guys have been pretty consistent with the message you want to give to him. What did he show you during his time on the court?
We went into it knowing that he was going to play big minutes. We didn't know how many, but he was playing well. So the 38 just sort of happened, but it wasn't an issue at all. I mean, he looked fine the whole time. We're trying to help him with all the little details that young players need to learn. I think the other night we got to look at some different combinations, which was really important. The first 8-9 games of the year were really about getting our feet underneath us and trying to see what we had with different combinations. And I think we've learned we got to try something different. And so JK will be part of the new rotation, and I'm excited to play him. And he's just got to keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah, and again, this team has not recovered from Mike Brown's departure yet. As someone who has literally seen Brown and what he does for the team, he was always one of the first guys there, one of the last guys out. He burned the midnight oil when it comes to his work ethic, and he was the defensive coordinator. And Jama Mama Lalela, who basically took over Mike Brown. I know Kenny Atkinson was promoted to being the number 1 assistant, but they're going to have to coach better, more effectively, because the defense is a serious issue. Anonymous writes, and the youth may need tutors when they watch film and to keep them accountable. Heck, those coach tutors may even need to test the young ones. I agree. I would love to know what's going on in those film sessions, because that is where a lot of the coaching takes place, holding individuals accountable. I don't know if you're showing Andrew Wiggins that missed layup. I think it's obvious how big of a screw up that was. But there are a lot of nuances that the young players need to be aware of. And that's where these film sessions are vital. And I don't know if I guess it's very hard to know exactly how that works, unless you're in the room itself. But I imagine Mike Brown played a big role in those film sessions. Ron Alex writes, I understand and agree that if the Warriors want to trade, they would have done it in the summer. However, don't you think they would rethink it if things keep going south? Maybe. But again, the team, they're really high on these youngsters. Like, even though they have a 3-7 record, even though like the numbers for Wiseman are really bad in a lot of ways, the plus minus goes without saying. He gets in foul trouble still. Defensively, he's routinely not where he needs to be. Offensively, he's not setting great screens. He's not the only person he's shown to be a solid pick and roll partner with so far is Jordan Poole. I agree. They need a lot of work, but I just don't think that the team's going to pull the trigger on that. If they would have done it, it would have been during the offseason. And again, with Kuminga, it's so hard to judge him because he hasn't played much. I still do not understand what those 4 or 5 DNPs were about. But the good news is we're going to start seeing him now. So again, the Warriors play the Kings tonight. Hopefully they turn things around. They're at the comforts of Chase Center. I'll be back tomorrow with Kylan Mills. I just wanted to do a quick little hit, say hello to everyone, get the chat stream rolling so everyone who wanted to throw a voice in there could. But we'll be back tomorrow with Kylan, and hopefully we'll be talking about a 4-7 Warriors team. I just really hope personally that Kuminga gets 20 minutes plus a game. I want Wiseman to get minutes. The purpose of this regular season is not to finish with a 1 or 2 or 3 seed to fight for home court advantage. In a lot of ways, I get the vibe of this team being similar to the Rockets in 1995, who finished with the 6th seed coming off their first world title under the Akeem Olajuwon era. And it wasn't until the postseason when it all started to click, and they just didn't care that much. And I'm getting a lot of that from this team. When I go on a flight, this is the best metaphor I could provide to show you why I'm comfortable with this Warriors team right now. When I'm on a flight, and I don't fly much, but when I do, and let's say you hit turbulence or something goes bumpy and it just, you're a little sketched out, I always look to the flight attendants, right? That's always my first immediate reaction is flight attendants. How do they look? And they're always calm, right? And when I see them calm, I'm thinking, okay, this is not a big deal, because if there's a serious issue, they'd be freaking out right now. When I see Draymond Green doing interviews in post game, he is so nonchalant in his answers. He's so apathetic in his answers. There is not a shred of concern from that man. Even Stephen Curry, I don't see much alarms raised. And if those two guys were freaking out a little bit, I'd be freaking out too. But they've been there for so much of this. I mean, for all of you that lived through this recent postseason run, they did that for 5 straight years. Just battle after battle after battle. And then they just did it again. So the regular season is just hard for them to wake up to rise to. The focus of this regular season has to be the development of these young players. And it's good to see that Kuminga is coming back. So anyways, and when Kuminga played 20 minutes or more last season, DY writes this, he averaged 12 points per game. I can't verify that stat, but Kuminga did average 9.5 points per game last year. He played nearly 17 minutes. I just want to see a little more of that. That is all I want, So anyways, thank you folks for joining me. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Kylan will join me. And until then, go Warriors. I think they're going to win tonight. I'd be very comfortable with that. And take care. Later.